Hi guys, and welcome to my review of Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. As you can see, we're going to have an introduction to this video, we're going to talk about the facts, the positives, the negatives, and we're going to wrap it up. And if you're a parent and you want to find out what your child should be watching or shouldn't be watching, skip to the end of this video and you can check out my parent section review on that. So let's get started. Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. This movie is the 8th installment of the Star Wars franchise. We've had 8 Star Wars movies about the Skywalker lineage and about Star Wars. If you include Rogue One, this will be the 9th movie. But really the 8th movie of the core story of what Star Wars is about. It's about family trying to figure out where they are in this universe and how they interact with this force that they have. So let's start with some of the facts. The actors in this movie you know from Star Wars. All these actors that you know from this movie, you know from Star Wars. So we have all the new characters that were introduced from the last movie, like Rey and Poe and Finn. We've also got the old Star Wars characters that we know and love from previous films, like Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia and even Chewbacca. This movie also reintroduces Kylo Ren and Supreme Leader Snoke, and also a couple of minor characters that may be pushed through into the Star Wars story. So this movie obviously starts after Episode 7, The Force Awakens. So we see Rey giving the lightsaber to Luke Skywalker, we see the Resistance coming together to take on the First Order, and that's where we're up to at the start of this movie. We see the First Order meeting up with the rebels in space, so it looks to start off as a negotiation point. And we all know that negotiations in Star Wars doesn't really fly with fans, so they play on that a little bit. We have Poe Dameron giving a little bit of stick to the First Order in a back and forth fun way. It's really quick, they get straight into the action. And that's pretty much this movie. This movie is about the First Order meeting with the rebels, they're joining, they're waiting for Luke Skywalker to come back and help them. Rey is dealing with Luke Skywalker with the whole Skywalker lineage and trying to figure out where she fits in this world, and at the same time you have that headbutting against the First Order and the rebels. That's all I want to say about this movie. Let's get into the positives, the negatives, and then wrap it up. So what are the positives of Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi? The first thing that stuck out in my mind were the worlds. The worlds were gorgeous. There are 3 main worlds that The Last Jedi touch on. We saw Ahch-To, the island planet from the end of The Force Awakens, where Rey meets up with Luke Skywalker. We're introduced to Canto Bight, which is a planet where wealthy businessmen that make money off Star Wars, off the war in the galaxy, which is an actually interesting thing to think about. They come together and they spend their money at this planet. It's a great planet. I think it's filmed in Croatia, which is a very beautiful part of the world. And the last planet of the film is Crate. This is a gorgeous planet. It's a red planet that's covered in a thin layer of salt. So when someone stands on the salt, you can see the red underneath, and they have a battle on this land, which is really fantastic. It's fantastic visuals, and that's the next positive, is the visual effects. The action, the ships, everything that's visual, that's non-living is fantastic. It looks real. A lot of the time I didn't know what was real models and what was computer generated, so the visual effects are fantastic in this. The acting style of the actor who plays Poe Dameron is also a lot of fun as well. He looks like he's just having a lot of fun with that character. The essence of Star Wars is there as well. It felt like an old Star Wars movie. It felt like I was 10 years old again, watching Star Wars, seeing some of these characters have a bit of fun, seeing them interact in a universe that's actually quite serious and it's in despair. There is this one scene, and you'll know it when you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's 2 characters having a conversation, and it feels like Star Wars. It just feels like I'm back as a 10-year-old boy watching Star Wars again for the very first time. That scene was awesome. It felt real. It felt like we were back in 1980s watching real filmmaking again. That balance between the story of the Skywalker family and the big galactic war that's going on, that's also quite tricky as well, and I think they balanced that quite well. They were going back and forth a lot of the time between the war that was happening and the Skywalker story that was happening, and I thought that was mixed in really well. The director did a really good job of that. Now some of the negative things. Unfortunately, CGI isn't there with living things yet. Every time I saw a computer generated living thing, it took me out of the movie and it made me think about the technical aspect of creating living things, and it didn't really make me think about the storyline. So that was one negative for me. The other negative for me was the storyline. This felt like it should be a Star Wars movie, but really it felt like it was just 1 or 2 days in a war that's supposed to last for generations. This was actually like a road trip movie where it just focused on a small little tiny aspect of a war, and it felt like a Star Battle movie more than a Star Wars movie. However, the storyline with Rey and Luke Skywalker, that hooked me, and that felt more like Star Wars as opposed to a battle. The final negative thing for me as well was the unexplained power of the Jedi. The Jedi seem to be able to do a lot of things now that they couldn't do back in the day, whether they figured this out on their own or they've had training. But there are some characters that do some things with the Force where I just thought you could help in this war if you use that power and not just to help yourself get out of that situation. So overall, I liked Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. I was excited for it. I saw it very late at night. I had to line up in long queues. I was really looking forward to this movie. The best thing for me was the story. The story felt real. It felt like a Star Wars movie. Granted, there are two stories. There's the Skywalker story and there's the battle story. And definitely the Luke Skywalker story was higher up than the battle story for me. Thinking about that, it was a Star Wars movie and not a Star Battle movie, so I give that one around about a 7 for story. The acting I said was pretty good. There are some actors that are new to acting that I've never seen before, and it kind of showed with their acting style, but a lot of the established actors were the character. I didn't think of the actor, I was sucked into the movie. So I give the acting style probably a 9 out of 10 overall. The visual effects are tricky. Like I said, when it wasn't a living thing, the visual effects I'd never even thought about. When it was a living thing, it just completely took me out of the movie and I was focusing on that character doesn't look like a living thing. It looks like a computer generated character. Style, probably a 9 out of 10 overall. The last category for this movie that I chose was the legacy of Star Wars. Is this a good Star Wars movie? Does it continue on with the story of Star Wars? And I felt like it did. I'm excited to see where the Skywalker story goes in the future. Even though the Star Wars war that's been going on for generations, I didn't really get any answers there about where that's going. I'm excited about where that whole family aspect of Star Wars is going. That one scene that I talked about earlier really pushed me up to about a 9 because that felt like Star Wars. That carried that legacy on and continued it from the old movies into the new ones. So that's my review, guys. Please let me know what I can improve on. I want to get my reviews better. I want to make it clearer. I want to make it more fun for you. So if you are leaving a comment, please let me know what I should change, what I should add, what I should keep in my next movie review. If you want to find out more about education, technology and education, follow me on Twitter. If you want to see more videos from me, make sure you subscribe to this channel and I will try to improve on my reviews and make it better for you as well. I'll also plan to share how I make my video tutorials if you want to make your own at home. If you're a parent, stick around for another 30 seconds and I'll talk about what you should look out for when you take your child to see Star Wars. But that's all from me. I hope you enjoyed my review and I will see you next time. Okay, parents, this is a Disney movie, but it's also a war movie, so there are a couple of things that you need to look out for, but overall, it's okay to take your children too. Obviously, there are battles, there are wars, people get stabbed. There's no blood, though. The only blood I think I remember seeing is when a character got pushed to the ground and they had a bit of blood on their lip. There's no language. They allude to R2-D2 cursing by having a character say, "What's your language?" But that's about it. Like I said, it's a Disney movie, but it's also a war movie. The only things you really need to watch out for are lightsabers going into bodies, but they clean that up really nicely. They won't do it in a way that is going to give your children nightmares. The only thing that you really would be worried about, apart from the lightsabers, is the scariness of the characters. If you're taking really young children to this movie, Supreme Leader Snoke could scare your children, depending how young they are and what they've been exposed to earlier. But other than that, I think your children will enjoy this movie, and I would recommend that it's okay to take your children too. Thank you for watching.